Christmas morning was supposed to feel magical, but the only thing magical was how quickly a family could shatter a person without even raising their voice. I remember standing there in the living room, the lights twinkling like an apology I would never receive while my little sister's laughter echoed through the house. "Come outside! Come outside!" they shouted. And when the garage door rolled up, revealing a shiny, midnight blue Bentley with a velvet bow the size of a small child, everyone screamed like we'd just witnessed a miracle. Everyone except me, because in my hand I wasn't holding a key or a box or even a card. I was holding exactly $2 crisp, humiliating, intentional. A whisper of a message, know your place. They laughed. They actually laughed when I opened it. And something inside me, something I'd been burying for 25 years, finally cracked. I didn't know it yet, but that tiny rip in my chest would become the doorway that led me out of that house forever. The morning had started the way it always did in the Howell family, with noise. Christmas carols, 2 loud cinnamon rolls on the counter, and Savannah twirling around the kitchen like she was rehearsing for a commercial she hadn't booked yet. She was radiant the way people are radiant when they know the world will always open its doors for them. My parents trailed behind her like loyal spotlights, adjusting her hair, fixing her robe, pushing her forward to center stage. That was our house, Savannah. Always center frame. Me somewhere just outside the shot. Dad clapped his hands as if commanding a live audience. "All right, everyone, let's get ready. This is going to be the Christmas to remember." He said that every year, but this time he meant it. I could hear it in the excitement cracking his voice. Savannah squealed, hopping on her toes while Mom filmed everything like a breathless paparazzi. I stood by the doorway, still half asleep, wearing the same sweater I'd worn for years because no one ever bought me a new one. My mug of coffee had gone cold in my hands. A part of me hoped naively, stupidly, that this year might be different, that maybe they had seen me, heard me, thought of me. But the moment Dad looked at me, his smile softened into something pitying. "Oh good, Mira's up," he said, as if I were a stray dog wandering into the frame. Mom didn't even look toward me. She was too busy adjusting Savannah's silk robe. Then came the gifts. Savannah had a mountain of them stacking so high she had to kneel to start ripping open the first layer. Designer shoes, a necklace she'd always wanted, a phone upgrade, a new camera for her influencer work, a ring light, a cashmere coat. Every time she shrieked, my parents clapped like she'd cured a disease. Mom finally placed a tiny envelope on my lap. "Merry Christmas, honey," she said in a tone people use when they're apologizing without really apologizing. It's modest, but you know Savannah needs more. You know you're the strong one. You know how it is. I opened the envelope. Inside were $2. The room burst into laughter. Even Savannah paused mid-unwrap to giggle. "Oh my God, that's so cute," she chirped. $2 for the practical queen. Dad patted my shoulder. "Keep it safe, kiddo. Might need it someday." My cheeks burned so fiercely, I wondered if the tree lights were reflecting off them. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to scream. But instead I smiled because that's what I'd been trained to do. The reliable daughter never ruined Christmas. Then came the moment that turned humiliation into something sharper. Dad grabbed Savannah's hand and led her toward the front door. Mom followed, filming breathlessly. "Come on, sweetheart. Time for your real gift." Real gift? I didn't move at first. I didn't think I needed to. What real gift could possibly require me to go outside in my slippers? But Savannah tugged my arm. "Come on, sis, you gotta see this." I stepped out onto the driveway. The air was icy enough to bite at the skin. The garage door rolled up, and the next second, a midnight blue Bentley shimmered under the morning sun like a portal to another universe. Savannah screamed so loud the neighbors opened their curtains. "No way! Are you serious? This is mine," Mom cried. Dad puffed out his chest. Savannah ran into the driver's seat, hugging the steering wheel like a long-lost lover. And I stood there holding $2 that felt heavier than the car itself. The contrast was obscene, deliberate, cruel in a way only favoritism can be. A picture-perfect tableau of a family I no longer recognized. Savannah revved the engine while Mom filmed. "Mira," she shouted, "move a little to the left, you're blocking the shot." Blocking the shot. I stepped aside silently. Snow crunched under my slippers. My fingers went numb around the useless bills. Dad slung an arm around me. "Don't look so glum, kid. Someday you'll get your moment." "Sure," I whispered. But in my chest, something dark, unfurled, quiet, steady, resolute. When the recording ended, everyone rushed inside to celebrate. Everyone except me. I stayed on the porch watching the sun bounce off the Bentley's polished hood, watching my breath fog the air, watching the life I'd built for them crumble with a simple $2 insult. By noon, the house was roaring with laughter again. Savannah filmed another video. Mom made cocktails. Dad bragged on the phone. And somewhere between their noise and my silence, I realized something terrifying. I had been disappearing for years. And this Christmas, they had finally finished the job. I went upstairs, closed my bedroom door, and stared at my reflection, hair messy, sweater faded, eyes hollow. I didn't look angry. I looked done. By midnight, everyone was asleep. By 1, the laughter had died. By 2, the house was still. By 3, I was quietly packing my bag. Not in a rush, not in fear, in clarity. I folded each piece of clothing carefully into my suitcase. I took nothing I hadn't bought myself. My hands didn't shake. My breathing was slow. It felt like untying a knot inside my chest, one thread at a time. Before leaving, I walked downstairs, slipped into the living room, and approached the glowing tree. Gifts for Savannah sparkled beneath it, their pride and joy, their golden child. I placed something small beneath the branches, right in the center where no one would miss it. An envelope. Inside, it wasn't $2. It wasn't anything they could laugh at. It was something they would never expect. Something that would wipe the smiles off their faces by morning. I zipped my suitcase, stepped into the freezing air, and walked toward my old car. Behind me, the house glowed gold, warm and oblivious. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't grateful. I was gone. I woke to the muted gray of a winter afternoon, the kind of colorless light that makes everything feel quieter than it really is. My phone buzzed angrily on the nightstand, texts, missed calls, notifications stacked on top of one another like debris after an explosion. I didn't touch it. I didn't have the strength to. My body felt hollow, drained, in a way that didn't come from lack of sleep, but from the weight of finally seeing my family for who they truly were. I swung my legs over the side of the bed, the wood floor cold against my feet. For a long moment I sat there staring at the carpet, as if the imprint of my past self was still sitting there, obedient, hopeful, blindly loyal. It was strange how quickly a person could change. How one morning gift of $2 could strip away years of denial. What had happened last night wasn't an awakening. It was a revelation. I wrapped myself in a blanket and made my way to the kitchen. The air smelled faintly of the cinnamon candles I'd burned the week before, though the scent had faded into something softer, almost melancholy. I poured myself a coffee, hands finally steady. The warmth seeped into my palms, anchoring me back into my body. For the first time in years, it was just me. No errands, no phone calls demanding help, no guilt whispering what I owed everyone. My apartment looked small, cramped even. But it was mine. Every bill paid by me. Every cushion chosen by me. Every chipped mug held only by me. No one had ever thanked me for any of it. I didn't need thanks now. I just needed truth. The clock on the stove read 12:32 in the afternoon. I'd slept nearly 10 hours after leaving at 3, my body collapsing under the relief of not having to hold everything together anymore. It felt almost shameful how good that relief felt. How much peace could fit into the tiny cracks where guilt used to live. I sank into the couch, coffee cupped between my palms, and stared at the window. Snowflakes drifted lazily from the sky, landing silently on the railing outside. The world felt quieter, calmer, almost kind. I whispered out loud just to hear it in the air. I'm free. The words didn't echo. They didn't tremble. They didn't hurt. They just existed. A soft knock pulled me out of my thoughts. My neighbor, Miss Langley, stood at my door holding a plate of cookies. She was old enough to be my grandmother, with white curls that looked like snow spun into hair. I saw your car pull in late last night, she said. Thought you might need something warm. I almost cried right there. Someone noticing me felt foreign. Thank you, I managed, accepting the plate. She studied my face with the kind of gaze only older women possess, the one that sees through every defensive smile, every tired excuse. Trouble at home? She asked gently. I swallowed. Something like that. Well, she said, patting my hand, sometimes leaving is the bravest thing a young woman can do. Her words hit me with a force I didn't expect. I nodded because I couldn't speak. After she left, I sat at the table with the cookies untouched, thinking about the years I'd spent mistaking obedience for love. Thinking about all the times I'd been told Savannah needs more than you, as if my needs were optional. Thinking about how my role in the family had never been daughter, it had been insurance. Stability. A reliable backup plan they didn't have to appreciate to use. The snow outside thickened, turning the world white. I watched it fall until I felt balanced enough to reach for my phone. Missed calls from Mom, from Dad, from Savannah. A dozen from an unknown number, probably a friend of my parents. I didn't open any of them, but I scrolled through the preview lines. Mira, where are you? Come home now. We need to talk. You're overreacting. Savannah is devastated. You're really doing this. Call us. Right now. Not one message asked if I was okay. Not one. I placed the phone face down and took a slow breath. Then I grabbed my coat. There was one place I needed to be. The drive across town was slow, snowflakes drifting across the windshield like tiny ghosts of yesterday morning. My wipers brushed them away again and again, revealing the road just long enough for me to keep moving. When I pulled up to Howell's Hearth, the family bakery I'd helped keep alive since I was 14, the parking lot was empty. Not unusual for Christmas Day. But the sign above the door had been replaced with a new modern one, black lettering on a matte white background. That wasn't supposed to happen for weeks. My stomach tightened. The remodel, the one they told me was too expensive even to talk about. I stepped inside, and the world tilted. The bakery was unrecognizable. Brand new booths, copper light fixtures, an espresso machine that cost more than my car, a pastry case imported from Italy. Every single thing glittered with money the family absolutely did not have. Money they always said I shouldn't ask about. Money they always told me to trust them with. I walked slowly to the front counter, my fingers brushing the new marble. The surface was cold, smooth, expensive. I tried to swallow the disbelief rising in my throat. It felt like betrayal had its own temperature, icy, sharp, impossible to ignore. Harmony, a part-time college student who worked weekend shifts, stepped out from the back. Her face lit up when she saw me. "Oh, Mira, Merry Christmas," she said cheerfully. "Savannah told us you covered the remodel. Everyone's been saying how generous you are." The words hit me like a slap. "What?" I whispered. Harmony blinked. "Savannah said this was all because of you, that you wanted her launch to look amazing on camera. She said you insisted on paying for everything." My knees went weak. I steadied myself on the counter. Savannah wasn't just taking credit. She was erasing me from my own sacrifice, turning me into the invisible benefactor, the quiet backbone she could polish into content for her social media empire. I stepped behind the counter, ignoring Harmony's confused expression. My eyes scanned the paperwork near the register, searching desperately for something I didn't want to find. Receipts, invoices, a stack of statements left half-folded. And then my heart stopped. Paid via Howell's emergency fund, approved by Mira H., Approved by Mira H. Approved. By me, except I'd never seen these invoices, never approved them. Never even knew about the emergency fund being raised. The bakery blurred in my vision. My pulse pounded in my ears. My throat burned. Without thinking, I pulled up my banking app. The loading wheel spun lazily before the numbers flashed onto the screen. A withdrawal, another, a third, all within the last week. Thousands gone. A fresh entry the night before. Not long after I'd left the house, it read launch prep, remodel payment. My breath caught. Launch prep, remodel, Savannah. It wasn't just favoritism. It wasn't just carelessness. It wasn't just emotional manipulation. It was exploitation. "Are you okay?" Harmony asked, her voice suddenly small. I tried to answer, but my voice broke before the words could form. I walked out of the bakery into the cold snow swirling around me. My breath fogged in the air, mixing with the frantic beats of my heart. The remodel wasn't a gift for the bakery. It was a stage. A spotlight, a platform for Savannah's future, and a drain on mine. I leaned against my car, my hands shaking violently. This was bigger than $2. This was bigger than a Bentley. This was every year I'd worked, every paycheck I'd earned, every sacrifice I'd made, turned into a weapon used against me. I stared at the bakery, the shiny new facade gleaming beneath the snow, and whispered the question I'd been too afraid to ask my entire life. How long have they been doing this to me? The snow answered with silence, and deep down I already knew far longer than 3 years. The cold followed me all the way home, clinging to my coat, settling into my bones, whispering a truth I didn't want to hear. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't my family forgetting to tell me things. What I saw at the bakery this morning was intentional, calculated, practiced. The kind of deceit that doesn't happen overnight. It grows slowly, quietly, fed by the assumption that I would never notice, never question, never push back. I dropped my keys on the counter and sank onto the couch, my hands still shaking from the sight of my forged signature on the invoices. The remodeled cafe played in my mind like a nightmare. I couldn't wake from the Japanese marble countertop, the chandelier, the new seating, all of it shimmering with money they claimed not to have. Money I knew now had come from me. I opened my banking app again, even though I didn't want to, even though it made my chest tighten. The list of transactions stared back at me. 3 years' worth of monthly transfers, emergency funds, little withdrawals, and then the big ones. The remodel totals. The Bentley deposit. And last night's launch prep payment. It was all there. Everything I'd been too tired, too trusting, or too conditioned to question. A loud knock startled me. I stood slowly, dread curling like a fist in my stomach. Mira, a familiar voice called. Not Mom, not Dad, worse, Savannah. I opened the door only because I didn't trust her to leave quietly. She stood there wrapped in a designer coat, sunglasses, and December hair, in soft waves that probably took an hour and 3 serums to perfect. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold or from entitlement. Hard to tell. "There you are," she said, pushing past me before I could respond. "God, your place is freezing." "Do you not believe in heat? It works fine," I said. "What do you want?" She dropped her sunglasses onto my coffee table like she owned the room. "You didn't answer any of my calls." "No," I said, folding my arms. "I didn't." She clicked her tongue, annoyed. "Well, that's rude, especially after everything that happened this morning." My stomach clenched. What exactly happened? She sprawled onto my couch, scrolling on her phone. "Oh, you know, the usual. I posted the Bentley reveal and it's blowing up. Like literally. It has 40,000 views already. Brands are already DMing me to congratulate me. It's wild." Of course that was what she came here to talk about. And I said, and she continued, dramatically rolling her eyes. "Someone commented asking if you were mad about the $2, which for the record was hilarious." I inhaled sharply. "Savannah." She held up a hand like she was swatting away a fly. "Don't be sensitive. You know Mom and Dad were joking." "Were they?" I asked quietly. because nothing about that felt like a joke. She slumped back into the couch. Fine, whatever. Maybe it wasn't our best moment, but honestly, Mira, you take things so seriously. Everything doesn't have to be some big emotional tragedy. I stared at her, studying the face of the girl I'd shared a childhood with. We used to sleep in the same bunk bed. We used to whisper secrets after lights out. When did she become this person? This stranger dressed in my sister's skin. Why did you come, Savannah? I asked. Really? She looked up from her phone. Mom's freaking out because you disappeared. And Dad wants you home tonight so we can all talk like adults. So they sent you to drag me back, I asked. She shrugged. Pretty much. I waited, quiet, unmoving. That's when she finally noticed something in my face, something raw, something she wasn't used to. Her expression faltered. What happened? She asked. Did someone say something to you? I laughed. The sound surprised both of us. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't hysterical. It was empty. Yeah, I said. Someone did. She frowned. Who you? I whispered. All of you. Her confusion deepened. Mira, what are you talking about? I crossed the room and picked up the printed invoices I'd brought back earlier. The ones with my forged approval. The evidence no one had intended me to see. You said I paid for the remodel, I said. You did, she replied defensively. I mean, you helped the family. Everyone knows that. I did not approve this. I shoved the invoices toward her. Savannah blinked at them like they were receipts for a meal she didn't remember ordering. That's your signature, she insisted. No, I said. It's not. Silence fell, and I watched it, the shift, the slow realization creeping across her face. As someone must, her voice wavered, finally cracking. Maybe Mom just filled it in because you were busy, or Dad thought don't make excuses. My voice was calm, too calm. You told your employees I paid for everything. You bragged about it. She swallowed hard. Because they said it was because of me. They said the launch needed to look amazing, so you agreed to let them use my money, I asked. Without asking me, her breath hitched. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. For the first time I saw something real flicker in her eyes. Not guilt, not regret, fear. Mira, she whispered. Mom said you'd be fine with it. She said you always are. She said you've never said no before. And that makes it okay, I asked. I didn't know, Savannah whispered, her voice shaking. I swear I didn't know they were forging anything. The sincerity in her eyes lasted a second. Then she added, Besides, it's not like you're poor, Mira. You make way more than me, and I need a better environment to grow my brand. The remodel isn't just for me, it helps the whole family. There it was. The entitlement. The script. The justification. Savannah, I said softly, I saw the Bentley deposit. Her lips parted. The blood drained from her face. You paid for that, I asked. She shook her head violently. No, I didn't know they were going to use Mira. Listen, Mom said they had savings. Dad said stop, I said. Just stop. Tears filled her eyes, but not the honest kind. The kind she used on camera when she needed sympathy. I didn't ask for any of this, she whispered. Yes, you did, I said. You asked every time you pretended not to hear me. Not to see me. You asked every time you took what was mine, and let them call it generosity. You asked every time you acted like you deserved the world and I deserved scraps. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. So what, you're leaving us? Just like that, I inhaled softly. No, Savannah. I'm leaving the version of me that let all of you treat me this way. Her face twisted. They're going to lose their minds. Let them, I said. You're ruining Christmas. No, I whispered. You ruined me. I'm just rebuilding. For a moment she stared at me, really stared, as if seeing me for the first time. Not as the background character, not as the bank account, not as the dependable, invisible sister, but as someone with a spine. Mira, please, she said quietly. If you leave, everything will fall apart. I picked up her sunglasses from my table and placed them in her hand. It already has, I said. She stood there, frozen, trembling shoulders, shaking as the truth finally caught up to her. And for once I didn't reach out to comfort her. I didn't step into the role I'd been forced to play my entire life. I opened the door. You should go, I said. She stepped into the hallway slowly, her breath hitching in the cold air. Mira, she whispered, I never thought you'd actually walk away. I met her eyes. I never thought I'd have to. Then I closed the door not on her, but on the life that had never been mine to begin with. By the time Savannah's footsteps faded down the hallway, the apartment felt colder than it had when she first barged in. I stood still for a long moment, my hand pressed against the door. I just closed, my pulse drumming in my ears. The silence felt different now, not peaceful, not comforting. It felt like the quiet that happens right before an avalanche where the ground is still, but everything underneath is shifting, cracking, preparing to fall. I forced myself away from the door and walked toward the kitchen table, where the invoices from the bakery still lay scattered like evidence in a courtroom. My name, my forged signature, my bank account, all weaponized against me. I gathered the papers into a single stack, as if putting them in order might somehow help me make sense of how far things had gone without me noticing. But the truth was obvious. I noticed. I just didn't let myself believe it. I turned on the lamp above the table. The warm light did nothing to soften the harsh reality on the pages. One receipt for the light fixtures alone was nearly $6,000. Another invoice for the custom seating listed a number that made my stomach twist. And then there was the espresso machine one I'd admired online and saved to my wish list, never daring to buy for myself. My parents had bought it using my account without hesitation. I sank into the chair and stared at the numbers until my eyes blurred. I didn't know how long I'd been sitting there, lost in the weight of it all, when my phone buzzed again. I glanced at the screen. Incoming call, Mom. I let it ring, then ring again, and again. By the fourth attempt, I picked it up, not to answer but to turn it off. I couldn't hear her voice. Not right now. Not when the sound of it might pull me back into the old Mira, the Mira who would apologize for being hurt, who would show up no matter how badly she'd been treated, who would fix everything because she was too afraid of losing the only family she had. I wasn't that Mira anymore. I needed space. I needed truth. I needed to understand the actual size of the hole they had dug using my hands. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to the bank in person. It was nearly 5 p.m. when I arrived. The lobby was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt sterile and unforgiving. A young woman named Amanda greeted me with a professional smile as I approached the counter. How can I help you today? I placed my ID and debit card on the counter. I need to review the last few months of transactions on my account. And I think there might be unauthorized activity. Her smile faded. She gestured for me to follow her into a small glass-sided office. When she closed the door behind us, the world outside the room seemed to dim. Tell me what's going on, she said gently. I took a breath, the kind that feels like dragging something heavy out of your chest. I think someone's been using my account, and I think they've been doing it for a while. The same person, she asked? I swallowed. My family. Amanda typed on her computer, her brow furrowing as she scrolled. There have been multiple large withdrawals over the last 90 days, she murmured. And several changes to your automatic transfers. My stomach dropped. Changes, yes, she said. Your monthly transfer amount doubled 3 months ago. The authorization was signed in person. I froze. Signed by who? She clicked open a scanned form and turned the screen toward me. Signed Mira Howell. But the signature looked off stiffer, unnatural, like someone had traced my name from an old birthday card. That's not mine, I whispered. Amanda's voice softened. If you'd like, we can initiate an investigation into potential identity misuse. Identity misuse. Hearing those words out loud almost broke something in me. I nodded slowly. Please. She printed a packet of forms and slid them toward me. This will take some time. But you should know you're not responsible for payments you didn't authorize. The words were a lifeline thrown into dark water. Not responsible. For the first time someone said it, and I realized how desperately I'd needed to hear it. I walked out of the bank into the freezing air, the wind cutting across my cheeks. Darkness had settled across the city streetlights, flickering to life one by one. My breath curled in front of me as I exhaled slowly. I needed answers. I needed to see exactly how deep this went. When I pulled into my parents' driveway 20 minutes later, the house glowed with warm Christmas lights, cozy, cheerful, deceitful. The contrast between the pretty exterior and the truth beneath it made me feel something close to nausea. I stepped inside without knocking. Mom was sitting at the kitchen table with a mug of tea, her expression twisting from worry to irritation the moment she saw me. "There you are," she said, standing abruptly. "Why on earth didn't you answer your phone? You had us worried sick." I held up the stack of invoices. "Why did you sign my name on these?" She blinked. "What are you talking about? Don't lie to me." My voice cracked not from weakness but from holding too many splintered emotions in one place. "You used my account. You forged my signature. You let Dad take out loans in my name. You told Savannah I funded the remodel." Her face tightened. "Okay," she snapped, folding her arms. "First of all, lower your voice. Secondly, you're overreacting. We didn't forge anything, we just filled in for you." "Filled in for me," I repeated. "On a financial document. On a loan. On a remodel contract." "You're making this sound dramatic," she said sharply. "We did what was best for the family. You weren't available. You're always so busy with your job." "Busy paying your bills," I said. A muscle in her jaw twitched. "You're acting selfish, Mira." The word hit like ice water. "Selfish," I whispered. "After everything I've done," she scoffed. "Oh, don't start with that. You've always had opportunities, Savannah didn't. You're the stable one, the responsible one. You can afford to help." "Help," I said. "I didn't help. I was used." She stepped closer, voice lowering into that tone she used when she wanted to guilt me into obedience. "We're family. Family supports each other." "No," I said quietly. "Family doesn't exploit one person until she breaks." The kitchen went still. Mom opened her mouth but no words came out, and that was when the front door opened and Dad walked in with Savannah behind him. He took one look at my face and the papers in my hand and sighed as if I were a child throwing a tantrum. "What's this about now?" he asked. "Your daughter is upset," Mom said tiredly. "She thinks we forced her into things." Dad looked at me with exasperation. "Mira, you need to calm down. You're blowing this out of proportion." "Proportion? A Bentley, a remodel, fraud, loans, years of being drained." "Tell me the truth," I said, voice shaking. "How long have you been using my money without asking me?" Dad's eyes flickered. "Just for a second, but long enough, and that was all I needed." "Get out," he said, losing patience. "If you're going to ruin Christmas with your drama, just get out." I inhaled slowly, then nodded. This wasn't my home anymore. It never had been. As I walked out into the cold night, Mom called after me, "Don't do anything stupid, Mira." But it was too late for that. The stupid thing had been staying this long. The stupid thing had been trusting them. I got in my car, hands trembling on the steering wheel, and for the first time in my life, I whispered the truth out loud. They never loved me. They loved what I gave them. Snow fell softly against the windshield, blurring the view of the house behind me. I didn't look back. The morning after that confrontation felt like waking into someone else's life, one where nothing familiar felt safe anymore. Snow had piled against the window overnight, soft and deceptively peaceful, the kind of winter blanket that muffles sound and makes the world look gentler than it is. I sipped lukewarm coffee at my kitchen table, staring at the invoices again, as if the ink might rearrange itself into a confession, an explanation, a reason that didn't bruise. But no matter how many times I read them, the truth stayed the same. Money missing, signatures forged, my name used, my silence taken for permission. And the more I thought about the remodel, the more I wondered what else I had been blind to. Or worse, what else I had been trained not to see. I grabbed my coat and keys and walked out the door before I could talk myself out of it. If the bakery was remodeled top to bottom without my knowledge, then the truth wasn't in my head, it was inside those walls. And I needed to see for myself how deep the betrayal went. The sky was a sheet of white heavy, with snow yet to fall. Howell's hearth sat at the corner of Rowan Street, looking like a glossy magazine version of the place I'd worked in since I was a teenager. The gold lettering on the new sign gleamed even in the dim winter light. It didn't look like the bakery I grew up in. It didn't look like the place I used to sweep floors and refill coffee cups. It looked expensive, curated, Instagrammable. It looked like Savannah. Inside, the smell hit me immediately. Not the familiar scent of yeast and cinnamon I'd inhaled for years, but something sharper and artificial. A trendy coffee aroma meant to impress influencers. Everything sparkled: polished floors, sleek tables, custom light fixtures. Even the pastry case looked like it belonged to a different tax bracket. And none of it, not 1 square inch, had been discussed with me. I wasn't prepared for how much that hurt. I made my way behind the counter, heart tapping at my ribs like it was trying to escape. The cash drawer held fresh receipt piles, new ordering sheets, vendor invoices. I reached for the stack closest to the register. And then I froze. Paid via Howell's emergency fund, approved by Mira H., approved by me. Approved without me. A cold wave rolled through me. My vision tunneled. I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't being dramatic. They were using my name, my credit, my money. Harmony burst through the back door just then, her cheeks pink from the cold. "Oh, morning, Mira," she chirped, brushing snow off her apron. "You're early. Just..." Looking around, I said, my voice thinner than I meant it to be. "It's beautiful, right?" she beamed. "Savannah told everyone you made this happen. She keeps saying none of it would have been possible without you. Honestly, you're kind of a legend around here. Legend. Invisible legend. The backbone of a business I didn't even know I was paying for." Savannah said that, I asked quietly. "Oh yeah," Harmony said. "She said you wanted the remodel to match her brand aesthetic." So thoughtful. My stomach lurched. "Her brand?" "Yes," Harmony laughed. "Didn't you know she's planning a full launch party here in a few weeks? Photo shoots, live streams, everything." She said this remodel was step one. I felt something inside me tear, not loud, not violent, just a quiet rip of understanding. The bakery wasn't being remodeled for the business. It was being remodeled for Savannah. For her content, her image, her future, my role. The silent investor. The funding source. The strong one who never asked questions. I set the receipt down before my hands could shake more visibly. "Thanks, Harmony," I murmured and slipped into the back office. The room was cleaner than I'd ever seen it. New shelves labeled bins, a fresh coat of paint. But the trash bin in the corner was overflowing, crumpled papers sticking out like little white flags of surrender. Something in me whispered to look, and for once I listened to that voice instead of silencing it. I reached into the bin, pulling out the top layer of crumpled documents. Most were discarded drafts, packing slips, vendor notes. But then I found it. A contract. Thick paper, heavy print. The heading read Howell's Hearth 2, New Location Agreement. My breath caught as I smoothed it out. Owner Savannah Howell, financial backer Mira Howell, amount $48,000, initial investment status approved. I staggered back a step. The room dimmed, sound dulled, and for a second I thought I might faint. This wasn't a remodel. This was an expansion. A whole new bakery. A whole new branch. A whole new business. Funded by me. Without my approval. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. I stared so long at the contract that the words blurred. My chest burned, and then the burn spread, rising like smoke into my throat, making it impossible to breathe. The door creaked open. "Mira," I turned to see my father standing there, coat still dusted with snow. His eyes flicked from the papers in my hand to my face, and something like annoyance, not guilt, not shame, crossed his expression. "What are you doing here?" he asked. I held up the contract. "What is this?" he sighed, as if I were a problem employee instead of his daughter. "You weren't supposed to see that yet." "You weren't supposed to sign my name," I shot back. He closed the door behind him. "Mira, calm down." "Don't," I said. My voice shook, but the words came out steady. "Don't tell me to calm down." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We're a family. We help each other. Savannah needed a leg up, and you've always been in a better position financially because I've worked," I said. "Because I've built everything I have, and we're grateful," he said sharply. "But Savannah is the future of this family. Her brand is growing. She's the one who can bring attention to the bakery. And I'm what I asked." The wallet, he didn't answer. That silence told me more than any lie he could have invented. I pushed past him into the front of the bakery, the air thick and suffocating. Harmony looked up from the counter, startled, but I didn't slow down. I walked straight out into the snow, the cold slapping my face like truth finally waking me. My car felt a mile away. My heartbeat was too loud. My lungs too tight. Everything inside me was screaming, "Get out! Get out! Get out!" By the time I reached my car, I couldn't feel my fingers. I leaned against the door, closing my eyes, breathing hard. The remodeled bakery stood behind me like a monument to every year I let myself believe love looked like loyalty without boundaries. A monument I had paid for. A monument built on my silence. "How much of my life did they take?" I whispered into the falling snow. No one answered. But I finally knew the truth. Whatever was hidden under the surface of my family's struggles, whatever lies had been carefully covered with holiday smiles and shiny Bentleys, this remodel was only the beginning. The silence after my meltdown in the bakery wasn't peaceful. It was the kind that pressed against my ribs like a vice. I drove home with the heater on full blast, but the cold inside me wouldn't thaw. Snow blurred the windshield, turning the whole world into white noise. By the time I parked outside my building, my hands were still trembling on the steering wheel. I sat there for a long moment, watching my breath fog the glass, replaying my father's voice calm and dismissive, like what I'd discovered was an inconvenience rather than a betrayal. "Savannah is the future of this family. You're blowing this out of proportion. We help each other." Help! Such a simple word for what they'd taken. I forced myself out of the car and into the apartment. The moment the door shut behind me, the tightness in my chest snapped. I sank onto the couch, elbows on my knees, hands over my face. The tears didn't come, not yet. The anger was too hot for crying. My phone buzzed. I didn't need to look to know who it was. "Mom." I let it ring until it stopped. Then it buzzed again. "Savannah." And again, "Dad." Finally, I turned the phone off and tossed it onto the kitchen table. I needed space. I needed clarity. Most of all, I needed proof, because truthfully, I didn't trust myself to rely only on anger. I'd spent my whole life explaining away their bad behavior, softening the edges of every slight. If I didn't document what I'd found, I knew I'd start second-guessing myself again. So I went to the bedroom, pulled out a binder, and began. Invoices. Bank statements, emails I'd skimmed too quickly the first time, old texts from Dad that seemed harmless then and horrifying now. I printed everything, highlighted every transaction, noted every suspicious overlap in dates between emergency expenses and Savannah's luxury posts. 30 minutes in, I found something I'd missed the first time: a forwarded receipt for custom leather seats. Not for a Bentley. For a Bentley customization. Color pearl white. Interior stitching gold. Cost enough to pay my rent for months. The timestamp 3 days before Christmas. My hands stilled. My throat tightened. The room felt colder. I whispered into the quiet. They planned the Bentley while telling me they couldn't afford flour. But the paperwork, as damning as it was, wasn't enough. I needed to know what else was hiding in that bakery, what else they'd signed in my name. I pulled on my coat again and drove back across town, not to the bakery this time, but to the alley behind it, to the old storage unit the family had rented for years. The key was still on my ring. No one had ever asked for it back. The lock clicked open with a groan. The air inside smelled like dust and forgotten seasons. Stacks of boxes lined the walls, labeled in Mom's looping handwriting, holiday decor archives, old inventory, bakery supplies. I sifted through them one by one, searching for anything out of place. At first, it felt like a waste of time, just boxes of old receipts and broken equipment. And then I found it. A file box shoved deep behind a stack of outdated menus. My name was written on the side in marker. Not Mira. M. Howell. Finance. The breath punched out of me. Inside the box were dozens of documents I'd never seen before. Applications, agreements, contracts, loan extensions. Every one of them had my signature. Every one of them was forged. I sank to the cold concrete floor, legs folding beneath me. My hands shook so hard the papers rattled. Loans for equipment I never approved. A business credit card issued in my name. Vendor accounts tied to my personal credit score. Even an overdraft protection agreement linking my savings to the bakery account. All of them forged. All of them neatly filed away, as if Mom had known they might be needed one day. A tight, strangled sound slipped from my throat. I didn't know if it was anger or grief. In the middle of the box, between two thick stacks of papers, was a smaller envelope. Handwritten. My name. I opened it with numb fingers. Inside were Christmas lists, not for me but for Savannah, typed, printed, highlighted. Next to each item was a column marked funding with my initials beside most of them. Pearl white Bentley, MH vlogger camera set, MH custom lighting for bakery shoots, MH influencer room remodel, MH. My initials were everywhere. MH, MH, MH. A pattern of exploitation laid bare. That's when the tears finally came. Hot, fast, unstoppable. I pressed my hands over my face, choking on the sound. It wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't even the money. It was the realization that they hadn't stumbled into using me. They had planned it. They had systems for it, lists for it, documentation. I was an asset. A resource. A quiet well of financial obedience they fully expected to draw from for the rest of their lives. Somewhere between sobs, anger rose, not wild but sharp. Controlled. Like a blade taking shape. I gathered the documents, shoved them into a bag, and locked the unit behind me. Snow crunched under my boots as I walked back to the car. My breath hit the cold air in sharp bursts. Dad had said Savannah was the future of the family. If that was true, then I had been their foundation, and they had been living off me so long, they forgot the foundation was not theirs to stand on. I drove home slowly, each mile pulling me deeper into a clarity I'd never felt before. The city lights blurred past the windshield. Snowflakes spun in the air like ash. By the time I reached my apartment, I knew exactly what I had to do, not out of vengeance, but out of necessity. Because if I didn't cut them off now, I would never get free. I wouldn't have a future that belonged to me. I spent the rest of the evening scanning documents, organizing them into folders: financial abuse, forged signatures, unauthorized debts, business misuse. The truth, categorized and undeniable. Around midnight, I opened a new document on my laptop and began typing. Not a letter, not an explanation, not a plea, a statement. Short, final, unshakable. This ends now. I stared at the words for a long time. My hands tingled with adrenaline. My heartbeat was steady, almost too steady. When I finally lay down that night, I didn't cry again. I didn't get angry. I didn't spiral. For the first time in years, my mind was quiet, because now I had proof. Now I had resolve. And soon they were going to lose the one thing they thought they'd always control: their access to me. Their access to my kindness, my silence, my money. Tomorrow everything would change. They just didn't know it yet. The morning after I organized the evidence, I woke feeling like my whole body had been drained and refilled with something colder, sharper, more deliberate. The sky outside my window was a flat sheet of gray, the kind that made you feel like the sun had given up. I wrapped myself in a sweater, made coffee, and sat at the table staring at the steam twisting up from the mug. I wasn't afraid anymore, just tired of being the last to know the truth. By noon, I had a plan. It wasn't revenge, it was survival. And like most plans born from quiet desperation, it began with a phone call. I dialed the first number with a tight jaw and steady hand. The bank's automated voice droned through options before connecting me to a representative. When she asked how she could assist me, I forced myself to breathe. "My name is Mira Howell," I said. "I need to dispute several accounts and signatures that were created in my name without my consent." She paused, typing. "Do you have documentation?" "Yes," I said. "All of it." Her voice softened. "All right, Miss Howell. Let's begin." For the next hour, we went line by line through every fraudulent agreement, my forged signature on the new equipment loan, the unauthorized business card, the overdraft protection linked to my savings. With each confirmation, something inside me tightened and then released as if my spine were realigning piece by piece. When she said, "These will be flagged for investigation," I exhaled for the first time in days. Next, I called the county business office about the unknown expansion permit, then the vendor accounts, then the credit bureau. By the end of the afternoon, I had taken back more control in 5 hours than I had in 5 years. But the hardest part was still ahead. I had to face them. Not in person, I wasn't ready for that, but with a message they couldn't twist or interrupt or drown out with excuses. So I emailed them. A single message addressed to Mom, Dad, and Savannah. Subject: final notice. My fingers trembled once, then stilled. I wrote, "All financial agreements under my name have been revoked. Any accounts opened without my consent are now under investigation. Effective immediately, I am no longer providing financial support to the family or the bakery." The choices made were not mistakes. They were deliberate decisions that used my trust and violated my autonomy. "I have all documentation. Do not contact me unless it's through an attorney." I read it twice. It felt too calm for what they'd done, too polite, too measured, but I sent it anyway. 2 minutes later, my phone rang. "Mom." I didn't answer. Then "Dad." I let it ring. Finally, Savannah's name flashed on the screen, full of glittery emojis and false sweetness she'd never bothered hiding. I almost let it go to voicemail. Almost. But something in me cracked and I answered. "Mira." "What the hell is this?" she snapped. No greeting, no breath wasted on civility. I think the message was clear. "You can't do this. You can't just cut us off. I already did. You're being psychotic," she spit out. "You're blowing everything up because you're jealous." That word used to stab me. Now it just made me tired. "I'm not jealous," I said. "I'm done." "Oh my God," she scoffed. "You're acting like we robbed you." "You did. It wasn't robbery. It was family." "Family doesn't forge signatures," I replied. "Family doesn't hide contracts. Family doesn't spend someone else's money like a personal piggy bank and call it love." There was a beat of silence on the line. Then she hissed. "You're ruining everything." "No," I said softly. "I'm just removing myself from what you already ruined." I hung up. Minutes later, a message popped up. "You'll regret this." I blocked her. The house felt too quiet after that exchange, like the walls were holding their breath. I wandered into the living room, pacing a path into the carpet fibers. I knew they'd show up eventually. They always did when they couldn't control the narrative. And I was right. 2 hours after the email, someone pounded on my door. Hard. "Mira, open this door," Dad's voice boomed through the hallway. My pulse kicked, but I didn't move. I stood in the center of the room, frozen, listening to him shake the doorknob. "Don't you dare hide from us. You owe us an explanation." "No," I whispered to myself. "I don't." His fist hit the door again, louder this time. "Your mother is in tears. Savannah's having a panic attack. You can't do this to us, Funny. They'd been doing it to me for years." "Open this door." I stepped closer, close enough to see his shadow under the frame. My voice came out steadier than I expected. "Go home. There was a long silence, then a low, dangerous growl. "You think you're better than us," he said. "You think your money makes you special." "My money was never the problem," I replied. "Your entitlement was." He cursed under his breath and pounded the door one last time. Then, silence. For a long moment, I thought they might be waiting, testing my resolve, but eventually I heard footsteps retreating down the hallway. A door slammed. A car started. Tires spun on snow. I didn't cry. I didn't collapse. I didn't crumble under the weight of their anger. Instead, I walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat at the table with the scanned documents spread out like a map of every line I'd finally drawn. For the first time, I didn't feel like the villain in their story. I felt like the woman stepping out of it. As the hours passed and night settled over the city, a strange, quiet calm wrapped itself around me. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was the closest I'd ever come to it. By the time I went to bed, one truth pulsed like a heartbeat beneath my ribs: I hadn't destroyed the family. I had finally stopped letting them destroy me, and tomorrow the storm they were brewing would come. But this time, I wouldn't be the one drowning in it. The storm didn't hit all at once. It arrived in waves, first confusion, then anger, then something uglier, something desperate. By the next morning, I woke to an inbox full of messages that read like a family unraveling thread by thread. I didn't open any of them at first. I just stared at the screen, letting the weight of their words sit untouched like a tray of food brought to someone who'd already lost their appetite. Outside, snow was melting into slush, dripping steadily from the roof in soft, irregular taps. It felt like the world was thawing while my family was freezing over with panic. I finally opened Mom's first message. "Mira, sweetheart, we need to talk. I don't understand why you're doing this. Your father is distressed. Savannah is upset. Please call us. You're scaring me." The next one came an hour later. "You don't mean those things. Families have misunderstandings. Let's clear this up before it gets worse." And then another. "I'm begging you, don't escalate this. It will ruin us." Ruined. That word again. They had ruined nothing of mine, not anymore. That morning, with a steady mug of coffee in my hands, I scrolled through each message with a growing sense of clarity. Then I saw Dad's. "This is betrayal. We trusted you. I didn't raise you to be like this." I set my phone down as if it were hot. They still weren't seeing it. They couldn't see that for the first time in years I wasn't acting out of guilt or fear. I was simply choosing myself. By noon, my phone buzzed again, this time from an unknown number. I hesitated before answering, expecting another plea or threat. Instead, a calm voice introduced himself as a representative from the bank. "Miss Howell, we're calling to confirm the fraud investigation is underway. We'll need you to complete an affidavit and provide the documents you mentioned." "I have everything ready," I replied. "Good," he said. "We'll also be freezing the implicated accounts until our review is complete." The words washed over me like warm water. Freezing the accounts. The bakery accounts. The messy, stitched-together financial web they'd built using my name. I thanked him and hung up. My breath trembled not with fear, but with a strange, cautious relief. Only an hour passed before the first explosion arrived. This time the message came from Savannah. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. She called immediately. I didn't pick up. I paced the apartment, heart pounding, waiting for the next hit like a soldier bracing for artillery. It came 10 minutes later, another message, this one longer, frantic. "The bank just called. They froze everything. The Remedel funds. The vendor accounts. Dad is going crazy. They said you filed fraud. They said you have evidence. What are you doing?" I sat on the couch and let the words sink in. For the first time, I felt the scale of what they had been doing behind my back. The bakery wasn't just remodeled, it was financially drowning, and I had finally cut off the oxygen. My phone buzzed again. "Mom, Mira, honey, please answer. We didn't think it would go this far. Your father is calling every bank and lawyer we know. Savannah is having a breakdown. You've put us in a terrible position. Talk to us." I typed slowly, deliberately. I told you not to contact me unless it was through an attorney. I hit send and blocked her. My hands shook afterward, not from doubt, but from release. Years of swallowed resentment had finally sharpened into a spine. The rest of the day passed in a blur of dull light and rising tension. I couldn't focus on work. I couldn't read. I couldn't stop walking from window to window. I wasn't scared of what they would do next. I just knew I would not go back to who I was. Around sunset, a knock rattled my door, loud, sharp, impatient. I froze. My heart slammed against my ribs. Then I heard her voice. "Mira, I know you're in there, Savannah." I closed my eyes for a moment, then stepped quietly to the door, resting my forehead against the wood. She knocked again. "Open the door. Don't be a coward." Her voice cracked on the last word. "I'm leaving if you don't open. I swear to God." Her voice wobbled. She wasn't angry. She was unraveling. "Please," she said, softer now. "Please open the door." I stayed silent. After a long pause, I heard her slide down the door, her back hitting it with a soft thud. "I don't understand why you do this," she whispered. "We're family. You could have just talked to us." My throat tightened. I had talked. For years. They just never listened. She kept going, voice unspooling like thread. "Dad said you're punishing us. Mom keeps saying you're unstable. The bakery is shutting down. Everyone online is talking about us. People are saying you're the reason everything is falling apart." I closed my eyes. That last part wasn't surprising. When people lose their scapegoat, they panic. Then Savannah said something that made my pulse spike. "Dad said the expansion contract is invalid now." He looked like he was going to throw up. "You ruined everything." Ruined everything. Again. Everything I had ruined was built on my stolen foundation. Outside the door, she sniffled. "Can you please just talk to me? Tell me what you want. Money apology. I'll do it. Just fix it." Her words sliced through me. Not because of guilt, but because of how familiar the pattern was. Money apology. Fix it, all the ways they had shaped my role in the family. I stepped away from the door and whispered to myself, "No more." Eventually, Savannah stood, her shadow shifting under the doorframe. "Fine," she said, voice hollow. "But don't pretend you didn't destroy us." Her footsteps faded down the hall. When she was gone, the silence that followed wasn't oppressive. It was clarifying. I sat by the window and watched darkness fall across the city. A single snowflake drifted past the glass, floating slowly like a piece of ash from a fire finally dying out. I whispered into the empty room, "I didn't destroy you. I just stopped saving you." The truth sat steady in my chest, no longer painful, only real. And even though I knew the fallout wasn't over, not by a long shot, I felt something new begin inside me. Strength, boundaries, a sense of self not tied to being needed. Tomorrow they'd panic even more. Tomorrow they'd scramble. Tomorrow they might even show up again. But tonight, I finally allowed myself to breathe. And it felt like the first breath of my whole life. The days that followed felt strangely quiet, as if the world had taken a breath and was holding it, not in peace, but in anticipation. I kept waiting for the next blow, the next email, the next knock at my door. But after Savannah's meltdown in the hallway, everything went silent. Not peaceful silence, tense, charged, like the moment before glass shatters. I tried to return to normal life. I went to work, made coffee in the mornings, even forced myself to read a book at night. But the quiet had weight. It sat on my chest, reminding me that my family wasn't done, not by a long shot. The bakery accounts were frozen. Their remodeling money was gone. The expansion was dead. Savannah's influencer income was suspended, pending investigation of financial misconduct. They weren't going to let that stand. On the third morning, as I stepped into my apartment hallway with a bag of trash, the neighbor 2 doors down poked her head out. "You doing okay, honey?" she asked. I blinked, surprised. "Yeah. Why?" "Well," she said, lowering her voice, "you had a visitor last night. A loud one. Looked like your mama. She was crying. My stomach dropped. Crying pacing outside.